A couple of weeks back, Kate made a video focusing on the differences between semi-autonomous driver assistance systems with Lidar versus those that are purely camera-based or vision-based. And it was a very interesting video, and lots of you had lots of things to say in the comments. So today I figured it would be about time for us to give you an update on our own personal experiences with the various semi-autonomous driver assistance features that our own personal vehicles have. So Kate and I are going to collaborate on this one, and we're going to give you a bit of a fleet autonomous vehicle capability update. So let's get to it. I'm currently sitting behind the wheel of my wife's 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV. It's a Premier trim, and that means that it left the factory with a very rudimentary lane keep assist as standard. The entry-level Bolt from the same period did not have it, although certain versions did if you opted for an extra package that added that functionality in. And what that means is that you can retroactively fit a semi-autonomous driver assistance system using the Comma 3. Now, Comma, for those who don't know, is a company that specializes in effectively an aftermarket semi-autonomous driver assistance system for a whole range of different vehicles. The real prerequisite is that your vehicle has some form of sensors built in that Comma then piggybacks off of to then use the car's built-in lane keep assist and distance sensors to add additional functionality to the car. And we've done plenty of videos on Comma before, but thanks to some great work within the open source community, you can actually get the Comma 3 working with a Chevrolet Bolt using some aftermarket tweaks. We've covered that before on the channel, so I'm not going to go into depth here to discuss that. But right now, my Comma 3 is running a version of Frogpilot. It's called Starpilot 2017 that is designed specifically for a Chevrolet Bolt EV of this particular model year. I should also add in here, because in previous videos I mentioned it, that if you have a newer Chevrolet Bolt, i.e. one made from about 2020 onwards, you actually have stock Comma capability. It's only the earlier models that are not officially supported by Comma. The latest iteration of Starpilot is really very advanced and picks up some of the upstream adaptations that the Comma team have brought to the hardware. And it's really smooth at handling corners. It can offer lane keep assist on single lane roads like this. On a freeway, it is also very much at home if you've got more than one lane in either direction. It does that very nicely. And while, I wouldn't necessarily take my hands off the wheel in a normal situation, I'd keep my hands kind of pretty close to the wheel. It's Tesla Autopilot good, and obviously without the subscription fee, which is the really cool thing about Comma. But despite the system being pretty darn competent of late, there have been some hiccups, which is one reason why I wanted to talk about it in this particular application. So the first thing that I want to note is about 2 or 3 months ago, my wife and I noticed that there were issues with the data connectivity between the vehicle and the Comma system. Now, because Comma piggybacks onto the vehicle's CAN bus and there's lots of data traveling between the Comma unit and the car, if there is an issue with data between those two, i.e. there's a transmission error or there's a connectivity issue, Comma basically goes, nope, you're driving on your own. I'm not operating. It's not safe. I can't communicate with the car, etc., etc. And we had continual errors that kept popping up. So we would be driving along and suddenly it would tell us we had an LCAS fault, which is LCAS stands for lane keep assist. And when that happened, the Comma unit would just say, no, I'm not going to let you drive using my functionality. You're on your own. And what was happening was that the information from the lane keep assist cameras, which are just up here, those are the ones that came with the car, there was an issue in the data stream between that and the comma unit, and it was saying no. Because it wasn't working right, my wife and I decided to do some troubleshooting, and we settled on, well, maybe it is the USB cable. Now, while comma has a vehicle-specific harness that you plug the comma dongle, I'm going to call it, the Panda unit that interfaces between the car's communication system and comma's hardware, while that has its own proprietary connection, the connection that goes from that unit to the comma head unit is just a USB cable, just a pretty high spec, decent quality USB-C cable. If there is an issue with some cable or some connection in your USB-C system, it can lead to data loss, data corruption, and of course in a vehicle, when you're talking about semi-autonomous driving, as soon as there is a drop of data, like some kind of blip, the whole system shuts down. So what we did was we ordered a new USB-C cable from Comma directly. We used one of their own cables. And when it arrived, I took off the old USB-C cable that had been in this car for about 2 years. And when I removed it, I noticed that the casing of that USB cable was all cracked up. That had led to basically the connector inside having quite a lot of play, which was leading to intermittent connections for the comma system, and therefore the comma system wasn't working properly. With that replaced, everything is back as it was. You see, I can do my lane change. It works just fine. And then I can pop back again. I just have to steer to the right and off it goes. Lane changing for comma is still a little bit jittery, but it's pretty darned good. The lane keep assist is mostly okay. Sometimes after you've done a move like that, you have to just kind of bring the car back center. But as soon as it detects the two edges of your lane, it does a really good job. So the other issue that we had that needed to be fixed was that comma's head unit was not responding to changes in speed limit settings. So how it's supposed to work is that you use the car's built-in cruise control to change your speed, and it reflects on the unit. But for some reason, it wasn't working. So you could set the speed with your accelerator pedal, engage cruise control, and the comma unit would remember the speed you'd set. And if someone in front of you slowed down, the car would slow down. But if you changed the set speed, the comma unit just would ignore it. How I got around that was I basically performed a factory reset of my comma unit and then reinstalled the software, and now it's working again. So I've talked to the team working on the Starpilot fork, and I think there was just like a corrupt preference that I caused dinking around with the system. So I'm happy to take that on the nose. But it's worth mentioning, if you have Starpilot and you have similar issues, just be aware that maybe sometimes it's being a little funny like that. Let's go and see what Kate's up to with her comma system, because she has one in her 2019 Kia e-Niro, and unfortunately her experiences have been a little bit more frustrating of late.
Thanks, Nikki. So I am inside. I am not driving my car with my comma 3, which is unusual. If you've watched this channel for a while, you'll know that I drive a lot using the comma 3, and before it I used the comma 2 for a very long time. I used the comma 2, in fact, from the moment we got it till the moment that the fan on it died. I racked up like 10,000 miles, which is most of a year plus of driving during the worst of COVID. And then when it started to get sickly, I thought about replacing the fan, didn't, ended up buying this, which is an original comma 3. They now sell the 3X, which is fundamentally somewhat redesigned. It has different internals, it has some different layout stuff, and the way it assembles is much more simple for them to do. So it's also apparently simpler to take apart, which, you know, this one isn't. having spoken to people on the comma channel, they say if you can have the choice between a 3 and a 3X, go with the 3X. But anyway, why am I not driving with this? Well, it's been in my car for a few years now. I've racked up nearly 20,000 miles on it. I think actually more than 20,000 miles. The reason it's not on and the reason I can't instantly answer that question for you is because it's broken. So, about middle of last year, came back from vacation, pulled this out of the car while I was on vacation because we went in the summer and it was hot and I didn't want this thing cooking in the sun. And then plugged it back in. First moment I plugged it in seemed fine. Driving along, about half an hour later, it said it had a communication error and switched off. And then for like the following month after that, I reseated the cable and it seemed to be fine. And then suddenly it started doing it again. It would just switch off like that. And there was no warning. Sometimes it would do the wailing beep of, hey, my power's been disconnected. You need to be paying attention. But sometimes it would just switch off. And because of that, I thought, well, maybe this has a hardware issue. So I spoke to Comma and they said, put the, reflash the firmware on it, put the standard stock OpenPilot, because I typically use SunnyPilot, and see what happens. Did that, maybe seemed to fix it for a little bit, and then suddenly it went back to failing again. In fact, I think actually it worked for a while, and I think I actually used it on a long journey, seemed to be fine, came into the car one morning, and then it died. It was just dead, sat there on the screen, and wiggling the cable didn't work. Unplugged it, plugged it back in, seemed to be working fine again. And at this point, I started to be very suspicious of it, and I've been very, very suspicious of it for the intervening period. Ended up doing some other things. There's going to be a whole video about this at some point, because it's been a fairly long process. They no longer sell spares for the original 3, presumably because they didn't sell enough of them to keep making the spares for it. So they've offered me a trade-in deal to go to a 3X, but I'm going to give this one last go at repairing it, and that will be replacing this socket here, which they call the CAN-C, I think, which is it's a USB-C socket that they use to transmit CAN data and transmit power. And this last time when it failed, I found that if I just held the cable into the connector at the right angle, it would say it was connecting fine, and then as soon as you let go, it would suddenly report a CAN error. It stopped switching off in the last iteration and started saying there was a cable fault. So yeah, it's not in my car right now. I wish it was, because going back to the HKG standard driver assistance package on my 2019 Niro EV, well, it does what it says it will do. It's just not good. Like, it's not bad as a driver assistance system, as a lane keeper system. It's not bad. It keeps you more or less in the middle of the road, but it does require steering input even when it's in the right place, which is very annoying to me. It doesn't do auto stop start, so when traffic starts to move away, it will chime at you and say the traffic is moving away. You have to put input in to do the moving away again, whereas this will chime at you and say we're moving off. You should be paying attention. So yeah, so look for an upcoming video from me on this. It will be a little while, probably, because what I want to do is replace the socket and then test it for a bit before I say yay or nay, because replacing the cable made it work for, I don't know, a couple of months. And yeah, overall I still love it, just wish mine was still working. That's my kind of update over. So back to Nikki, and I feel like she might be testing Ford's driver assistance system. I think she is. I think she's in her truck. Let's find out.
Thanks, Kate. I hope that you are able to get your comma back to full health. So I'm now in my big, ridiculously sized F-150 Lightning, and yes, we have an update on this truck's capabilities too. So for those who don't know, when the F-150 Lightning launched, it came with Ford's BlueCruise 1.1, which was like advanced lane keep assist on steroids. It was honestly pretty darned good. I liked using it. I thought it was a pretty competent setup, and it allowed hands off, eyes up, semi-autonomous driver assistance features. So much like GM's Super Cruise, BlueCruise only works on roads that have been properly mapped with really, really high precision maps and GPS data. If you drive on a road that hasn't been mapped by that system, it will just not activate. And in the 3 years that I've had a Ford EV that has had BlueCruise technology, we've seen both an increase in the number of roads that you've been able to use BlueCruise on, but also improvements, incremental improvements to the technology that underlies the BlueCruise system. So, for example, I live west of Portland in Oregon, and there is a pretty well-known route towards Portland, Highway 26. And as you come up over the West Hills to go into Portland from the west, you climb up pretty high, up to about 1,000 feet, and then you go down into a tunnel and then come out the other side and you're in Portland. And when I first got this truck, or rather when I got the original F-150 Lightning that I had, BlueCruise wouldn't work from the top of the hill on 26 down into town. The road has some pretty big curves, and BlueCruise initially just refused to work on those curves. You had to take control of the vehicle. Over the last 3 years, Ford has improved the system and made it more capable and more happy to work with curved roads, and now BlueCruise does that and has been doing that for a long time. But one of the other kind of motivating factors for me making this video is that about a week ago, Ford pushed an over-the-air update to this truck that enables BlueCruise 1.4. What makes BlueCruise 1.4 so special is that it finally brings hands-off lane change capabilities to previously BlueCruise 1.1 vehicles. And hopefully I'm just about to demonstrate this for you right now. So I'm currently driving, so I'm going to turn on cruise control. It's now got BlueCruise on, which is obviously the hands-free system, and like I say, it's hands off, eyes up. But now I can hit the indicator, and when it's safe, the truck will change lanes for me, and then it will speed up to follow the flow of traffic. Previously, BlueCruise wouldn't do that. You had to take control of the steering wheel, indicate, execute your overtaking maneuver, get back in the lane, and then BlueCruise would resume the driving. And so this is a really big update, especially as GM and a lot of other automakers have now pushed driver assistance systems from the factory that have lane change capabilities. Unlike the latest version of Super Cruise, which will automatically overtake someone if they're traveling slower than you and there's space, this still requires you to go, you know what, I'd like to overtake that person. But it's a pretty competent system, and it seems to work really rather nicely. The update for this has taken forever, and I do want to criticize Ford because Ford's not very good at promising features and then delivering those features. Let me rephrase that. Ford takes a long time between promising a feature and delivering it. And in the age of the EV, it's something we've seen more and more from Ford. It goes, hey, this vehicle is going to have this capability and this functionality. We're going to roll out a software update to enable it. And then there's a really big gap. Ford's getting better at it, but it still takes a really long time to go from the your vehicle will be able to do this to here it is, it's rolled out and it's safe. And I know a lot of that is down to the fact that Ford wants to make sure that its vehicles are safe, right? It wants to make sure that when it actually pushes the technology to customers' cars, it actually works. And based on the limited amount of time that I've had with BlueCruise 1.4 compared to my previous experiences with BlueCruise 1.1, 1.2, which I had on this truck previously, it's very competent. And there's honestly no shadow of a doubt that the system is going to safely change lanes for me. I feel very confident, even with limited time behind the wheel, that the system does exactly what it says it's going to do. And if you bought an F-150 or a Mustang Mach-E, or in fact any Ford with BlueCruise in the last 6 months or so, it probably came with BlueCruise 1.4 as default, as standard. So you're probably watching this and going, well, I've had this technology for a really long time. The over-the-air updates to retroactively add that feature to older vehicles, though, has been a slow and arduous process, and Ford has had to roll out update after update after update. But I think Ford is finally getting the idea of over-the-air updates and how it works. Now, I know Ford has come under a lot of criticism of late about how it does its update process. It seems to quite randomly update customers' vehicles, and there doesn't seem to necessarily be a predictable pattern to who will get the update and when. But I know that Ford still does this very incremental update process where it updates a small batch of vehicles rather than trying to do them all at once. And look, that does make some sense because it helps Ford avoid unexpected software bugs bringing down an entire fleet, which is something that other automakers have experienced, right? Suddenly updates brick customers' cars, and by doing a very small rollout to a small proportion of the vehicle population and confirming that everything works before then updating other vehicles, it makes sense from a being safe perspective. But as a customer, I can also understand that it's a little frustrating. It's worth noting that I haven't got BlueCruise 1.4 to do lane merging, because in order for you to be using the system, you have to be on a freeway, and when you're on the on-ramp, that doesn't count. I'd love to test an intersection where you get multiple vehicles merging at the same time. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, so I guess we'll find out. But this automatic lane change, it works and it does what it's supposed to do. But it's not just the automatic lane change in BlueCruise 1.4 that's worth talking about. And unless I'm very much mistaken, I know I said if you bought a Ford car in the last 6 months, it probably came with BlueCruise 1.4. I think the newest Ford vehicles are now getting 1.5, BlueCruise 1.5, and it's got slightly different hardware. So you may get one or the other if you buy a brand new Ford today. It's not just lane keep assist though that's a new shiny thing for BlueCruise. It also has lane biasing, which is a very important thing. So what is lane biasing? Well, it's if you are driving along and you're going past another vehicle on a multi-lane road where you're all going in the same direction, and that vehicle happens to be a big truck or something that takes up extra space, BlueCruise will now actually move over further than it normally would to ensure that the space between you and the vehicle you are passing is a set safe distance. And that is very much welcomed, because previously what happened with BlueCruise would be if you would overtake something that was large and taking up more of its space, your BlueCruise equipped vehicle would sit bang in the middle of your lane and it would not budge. And that meant that if you're going around a corner, for example, and the vehicle that's next to you that's very large moves over a little bit, as it naturally would while going around a corner, it was a buttock clenching moment, let's just leave it like that. But now the system will move over a little bit more to ensure that you have that gap. There's also better lane centering when you go around corners. It can handle more corners, and it's also made some improvements to how it communicates what it wants you to do as you're driving along. Now, previously to the big update that gave me 1.4, there were some improvements to the eye tracking system. So there's an eye tracker there, there's an eye tracker there, and that helped reduce the false positives where the system would nag you and say you weren't looking at the road ahead when you were. But it all works together to ensure that the user experience is better for everyone. There's also been improvements to the blind spot detection system and also the forward and backward collision safety system. So, you know, ensuring that you're less likely to get involved in a collision from the front, and if you're backing out of a space, you're more likely to be warned that, you know, there's somebody in your blind spot. So those improvements have really helped sell this system for me, and I'm very happy that it seems so well polished and so well put together. I should probably also note that unlike a lot of semi-autonomous driver assistance systems that don't do very well in the wet, this system is an absolute star. It's an absolute rock star in inclement weather. I've never had any lane positioning issues with it, and that makes me very happy indeed. So thanks for watching. I'm really glad that we are moving towards a future where semi-autonomous driver assistance systems are becoming more ubiquitous. I think every vehicle should have them, but ultimately I prefer the future where the human behind the wheel and the vehicle are cooperatively driving. I think systems that demand it drives or you drive are frankly dangerous, so I still don't like the way that Tesla handles it. But I also think that we are still a long way from fully autonomous driving. So this kind of setup where I am still engaged, I am still paying attention, and the car is working alongside me to drive, that helps reduce fatigue. It ensures I stay more awake and alert. And that's where I think the future is.
Thanks for joining us today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, on our Patreon page down below, or you can reach out to us using Mastodon or Blue Sky. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They're part of the massive community of supporters who make this channel possible, helping us through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and ensuring we remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. We have options available across a wide range of different price points, starting from $1.50 US a month. A massive welcome to our newest supporters: Andrew Dijak, Alex Flinner, Mark Chopping, Squire, James Higgins Thomas, Crispy Noges, Charles Noun, B. Henke, DVDD, Maria van der Linden, Kay Firth, Scott Churchill, Nathan Okawa, Corporal Dwayne Hicks, T2 Roman, Michael Schaefer, Alon M, Peterson, Albert Beidou, Omar A. Kale, Robert Gee, and Nick. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame, and now you can even gift membership to someone else. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at for the time being, address also linked below. You'll also find links to our swag store, and if you are someone who has to shop on Amazon, please consider using our affiliate link so we get the commission, not Jeff Bezos. So we can continue to focus on making our content even better and reduce creator burnout, we're doing a different set of release days this year and plan dropping new content every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday on our main channel, plus something special on Sunday over on TE Take 2. And if you want more, the mighty algorithm that hates us thinks you should be watching this video, but we think this one is well worth watching too. Be awesome, be kind, be intentional, and don't forget to resist. Keep evolving!